Hi, hello, I'm Sam Harris and I read, review and discuss fantasy and science fiction books. And today we're actually talking about not a book, we're talking about some science fiction. We're talking about Dune Prophecy. So I have watched the pilot episode. It came out on Sky Atlantic last night, or this morning. I watched it this morning. This is the new show set in the Dune universe. I think it's based on one of Brian Herbert's books. I don't know whether it's Chapter House Dune. I actually don't know, so I shouldn't tell you guys and talk about it. So, what's going on in the Dune Prophecy? So, the majority of Dune Prophecy is actually from the point of view of the Bene Gesserit, who are the they're not like, I wanted to say warrior monks, but that's actually wrong. They do some fighting stuff, but like the Bene Gesserit's like whole stated goal, right, is to create the Kwisatz Haderach, who is Timothy Chalamet in Dune, Paul Atreides, who is basically a man with the ability to see the future and use all the Bene Gesserit powers. The Bene Gesserit powers include things like a voice that can force people to do what you want, which is used to spectacular effect in the first episode of Dune Prophecy. And they also, some of them are able to have like visions and stuff, and they're able to use kind of training and skill rather than like supernatural powers to discern whether people are telling the truth, which is a huge part of this story as well. So what's the setup of the story? Which is basically the Empire in Dune is kind of balanced on a knife edge. So you have the Emperor, played by Mark Strong, who is kind of, he's a few generations removed from the AI war, where humans had risen up against the AI that enslaved them, and the AIs and thinking machines, computers essentially, have been banned. So Mark Strong is the lead, the third Emperor since that's happened, and he clearly sees himself as like a military leader. He wears a military uniform, and it's even referenced as a uniform, but he's not a particularly militaristic leader. So he's very much like armchair general. He's quite unsure of himself. And one of the big things that's going on with Mark Strong's character is that there is an arranged marriage happening for his daughter to a 9-year-old whose father is willing to give the Emperor ships, to like fighter jets basically, to help take out the Fremen and gain him more control over Arrakis. Oh, Barry wants to be in this video apparently, not just... You want to be in it? He loves me. So, yeah. Mark Strong is very good. I think he's a really interesting performance because he's so unsure of himself. He's not like an emperor, like regal figure. He's very, what's the term? He seems quite weak compared to the people around him, especially compared to the Bene Gesserit characters, and I really liked that. I like the contrast to Shaddam IV from the Dune movies as well, because even though it doesn't feel like any of the Dune people like involved in Prophecy, like Denis Villeneuve's name wasn't in the credits. I did check the opening credits if he was an exec producer or anything, but he's not credited. So very interesting. We also see one of the major characters, if not maybe the main character, is a Harkonnen, and this is set 10,000 years before Dune. One of the main characters is I think she's called Vela or Vaya Harkonnen, and she is eventually the Reverend Mother, the leader of the Bene Gesserit, and she and her younger sister, who's also a Bene Gesserit, are kind of scheming to start the breeding program that ends in the Kwisatz Haderach, but also to try and put a Bene Gesserit on the throne. And that's kind of their plan, and you see this happen kind of right from the beginning, when you see them as like teenagers at the beginning of or young adults at the beginning of the show, as part of like the setup for the story. And though the the actors they've chosen for that are like recognizable actors, I would say. Like Charithra Chandan is one of the actresses for the younger characters, so it does feel to me like we're going to be coming back to that cast in future episodes. So I feel like maybe we're going to have a dual timeline thing going on, which would be really interesting. So you got her younger sister who is a bit more like heart over mind, and then Vela is more mind over heart. You know, she's very much like focused. She's in on the mission, whereas her sister is more like she's a bit more protective of the younger like acolyte sisters. We get to see quite a few of those, which is really interesting. So you get to see like not get to see, but you get the vibes of like why maybe they've all got these different motives for being sisters. One of them says that she was raised by the sisters, which is again very interesting, and she seems to be kind of gifted, which again I thought was really good and really interesting. There's also an Atreides on the cast. He's kind of a minor character. He's the princess who's been married off or betrothed off. He's her swordmaster, her like weapons instructor, the Gurney Halleck of this series. And he seems very much like he seems boring, I have to say, as a character, and the actor they've picked is not doing them any particular favours. I think one of the things that's really good about Dune is that none of the characters, none of the movie actors in Dune are like uninteresting, boring-looking people. You've got like Oscar Isaac, Timothée Chalamet, Rebecca Ferguson. None of them are like generic-looking, which I do think that this Atreides lad is. Deeply sorry if you watch this video. I really hope you don't, because he does just look quite generic. He looks like he would be like the Red Ranger in a TV show. Like that's where I feel like a Power Rangers TV show. That's where I feel like if you were like, what does this type of actor look like? I'd be like this. He looks extremely generic. The princess is a really interesting character, which is funny because a lot of his scenes with her, and like she seems to have like fallen for him, but like there is nothing interesting about him at all. And her younger brother Constantine, who's the prince, he's really interesting. I definitely want to see more of him. He's kind of got this like second son vibe, because obviously he's not the heir, she is, and he's got like a real like happy-go-lucky vibe, if that makes sense. But I feel like there's definitely something going on underneath there. The Queen is also strong, and you don't get to see much of her in this, but she feels like she's almost like the backbone for Mark Strong's Emperor character, the Empress, Queen, whatever. I really liked her as well. She does not seem to trust the Bene Gesserit, which obviously makes you like her because you know that they're scheming. You've seen them scheme. One of the big things, like I was saying, is that they want to get a Bene Gesserit on the throne, and they've convinced the princess to come and train to be a Bene Gesserit sister. So they're basically on the precipice of them completing what they want to do, whereas the Emperor is like, he's on the precipice of, if he makes a bad decision, the great houses will take him down. But the interesting thing is obviously that we know that House Carino is still the imperial family in the Dune movies 10,000 years later. So we know that his house doesn't fall. So looking at the storyline from that aspect, because it's far enough away from those Dune movies, there is a bit more ambiguity, but it does feel like you don't have to worry as much about Mark Strong and his family, and that you can be more invested in what's going to happen to the other characters and what's happening in the universe. Yeah, I think visually the show is incredible. I've not seen a show look this good in forever. Like since Westworld, really. I've not seen a show look this good. The writing is okay. It doesn't really stand up to Dune or to other really high quality prestige shows. So stuff like Westworld. But it does feel like it's got a lot of potential. And I like being kind of back in this world. I like seeing a corner of it that we've not really explored by being so focused on the Bene Gesserit. And I found them really interesting in the original books. I thought they were like some of the best world building and lore stuff that Frank Herbert had come up with. And I also really like the predominantly female cast. I think all the actresses and all the actors, aside from the Atreides lad who has a boring face and is not particularly written very well, everyone else is quite interesting. There is a Fremen like in the background of one of the scenes, who I think is going to be a major character. And we do also meet a guy who's been serving on Arrakis for 12 tours. His name's like Dominic Hart or something like, or Solomon Hart or something like that. Interesting character name. Very clearly meant to be the like Duncan Idaho of this show. Like he's got real big. We wanted to cast Charlie Hunnam, but he was busy vibes. And I am interested to see where the character goes. He does something like, this is not a non-spoiler review, but he does something kind of monumental, or like he has like the big pivotal moment as part of the show, the part of the pilot episode. So he is obviously a character to watch, which I'm interested in seeing what's going on. And like I said, so visually this is incredible. I think that they have taken a look at how popular the Dune movies were. They've taken a look at how popular Game of Thrones was, and HBO has gone, can we do Game of Thrones in space? And that's really what they're trying here. They're trying to have a show that is intensely political, that is about, you know, sex and murder and backstabbing and all this sort of stuff. And I don't 100% think it works. I think that it's one of those, like, it's like a 3-star show for me so far that has 4-star potential. I think it's about as good as, you know, like early Game of Thrones stuff, but then I was never a huge fan of that show because it just felt like a kind of weaker version of the books, despite it being pretty good. But this particular show, I don't know anything about the books because I've only read the first 4 Dune novels. I've not read any of the non-Frank Herbert stuff. So yeah, I know a lot of the lore and a lot of the background. But one interesting thing seemed to be I don't think they had mentats in this. And I didn't, so that like no one talked about it. And there's one of the big dramas in the episode is someone has a thinking machine still left over from the war. And it's kind of a big pivotal moment. And the Queen's like, this is a fucking crime. And the Emperor's like, actually, you know, let's just leave it this one time. And it, again, makes him seem like kind of a weak character, which is interesting. Because, you know, you don't, I mean, I guess kind of parallels to House of the Dragon, where that character, the Emperor there, was kind of a weaker character. So yeah, interesting to see what they do with Mark Strong's character, because he's got kind of this strong outward-facing personality, but then it feels like it's a very thin veneer to quite a weak-willed person, which, again, very interesting. And he is pushed by everyone around him quite a lot in the episode, and I want to see where the show takes that, because he's kind of the big marquee name actor in this show, so really interesting to see how it treats him. I will be watching the next episode. I don't know whether I will do another review video like this one. If it really grabs me, I will. But I'm not great at watching TV. I usually just prefer to read a book instead. But wanted to watch this, and then once I'd seen it, really wanted to talk about it. Visual effects, by the way, excellent. A lot of this show seems to have been filmed on location in real places, and these are also real interesting places. So they filmed there's like a Bene Gesserit funeral that they film somewhere that looks like volcanic Iceland. Really, really exciting. Lots of great visuals, great costume design in many ways. There is a nod to Princess Irulan's golden spiky veil thing from Dune 2, and there is some really interesting costuming around the princess, which is the same character has the same thing. The Bene Gesserits all look great. They have the veils. I think one of the things that the show does that I don't particularly love is show you more of the face through the veil. I feel like the veil is making them more anonymous, is a more kind of interesting look. But yeah, overall, I did enjoy the show, and I will be carrying on with it. So I've not really done a TV review, like an episode review like this before. So if you've enjoyed this video, please do drop down in the comments below, give the video a like, and let me know what your thoughts about the episode were, whether you're going to be watching any more of it, if you've read the books, or if this discussion has made you kind of interested in watching it. Also, if you have not watched any of my videos before, if you've come in because you're a Dune Prophecy interested person, I talk about fantasy and science fiction books. So I'm currently reading through The Wheel of Time, which I've been reading one a month over this year, and I'm also reading through lots of other sci-fi and fantasy stuff, and maybe eventually we'll get to some Dune books. If this show is good, maybe I will read the book that it's based on to see how well it was adapted. I'd be interested in seeing how that works out. So if you are interested in any of those things, please drop a subscribe and stick here with the channel, and I will speak to you tomorrow.